So what I miss? Let me check. Yeah, okay. So rockets. I'm gone for like 5 minutes. And rockets, or, as we call it here in Israel, Thursday. Welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem in Israel. And this one is called The Watchmen. I've been sitting for a while now thinking how to not make this awkward. Probably failed already. Anyway, do I go right into the Parsha? Do I share what I've been through? Do I even continue with the Parsha? Do I cover something else? I'm sure everyone by now has heard the situation that's going on over here in Israel. And let me tell you, the rockets are the least of our problems. You see, it's not about the rockets, just like it wasn't about the Rona. And yet the chosen people don't seem to be getting it. So if I may, and I will, share some new understandings with you. First and foremost, I need you all to understand something. I am not where I was, and whether you are aware of it or not, neither are you. It has nothing to do with me, but everything to do with everything that's going on. All the things that have been discussed on this platform have been making more and more sense as time went by. For the past 50 days plus, we've been playing the roles of observers. And if you've ever met an arena or myself, we always have something to say. So right now, being forced to sit down and shut up and just watch, it was difficult at first until we started seeing things. But this time it was imperative that we just watch. This sabbatical was an absolute blessing from God because of the understandings that we have received and the knowledge that we had gained. Almost all of which I will be sharing with whoever is out there in the times to come. And that's really why we did it. Nothing we do is for our own personal gain, but rather for the sake of doing what we have been put here to do. Many of the concepts and things that will be presented here have been discussed over the past year. Again, we're going to use all our knowledge base and just expand from there. So if you're a long-time viewer, you should be able to get right into things. But if you're just joining us, then know this. This is not your average Torah class. Because if you are, that means that you're fed up, meaning if you're here. That means that you're completely fed up with the current system that has been broken for years. And while many speak of this, very few, to just about none, give you something alternative. The system is broken. Okay, it is, but we're going to try and make it work, but it's not. Now, I'm absolutely not speaking of undoing anything that has been said or done in regards to who we are and where we come from. We are not idolaters here, okay? Nor am I speaking of different streams that are more convenient or lenient. We are not reform or conservative. And I'm certainly not speaking of anything that is a mishmash of all these things while claiming ownership to anything that does not belong to us. We are not fools. I'm not here to tell you what to do or how to live. I'm not a cult leader and you're not a sheep. I hope not. I'm here to steer you in the right direction while giving you the tools to be self-sufficient. This is all I've ever wanted, which I believe every person has full potential of doing, each according to their own individual level. You have to fill your cup. You understand? Don't look at anybody else right now, okay? Some people's cup is the size of a swimming pool. You don't want to be them. If you got a shot glass, you're okay, all right? Fill that up. It's equal. This is how it works. So tell me, why did Israel have to go into the wilderness? Okay, we're in Sefer Bamidbar right now. Why did Israel have to go into the wilderness in order to receive the Torah? The Torah is given specifically in the wilderness. Now, it's the same concept on a much smaller scale as to why we need to unplug from time to time just to get our bearings, as well as take the occasional sabbatical, which we did. It's because in the wilderness, or more specifically in the midbar, the desert, it's a place devoid of human presence. And since we have accounts from the Torah and pretty much any other history book, starting after the generation of the flood to the generation of the Tower of Babel, mankind seems to be at war with one another all the time. We're always up to no good, right? The reason they got as far as they did during the Tower of Babel was because they were of one mind and one tongue also, and were actually living in peace with one another, which is something that God favors almost above anything else. Now, during the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, what broke the camel's back, again, they were the worst of the worst. They were doing everything that they were doing, and God left them in peace. Why? Because they had peace with one another. Forget about how they treated outsiders. But they had peace with one another. And the breaking point was when they broke that peace. And they viciously tortured and murdered one of their own in brutal Saul-like or Wicker Man-like fashion. Okay? They took Lot's daughter, tied her to a roof, smeared honey all over her, and had bees come and sting her to death. And she screamed. And God said, "The scream of Sodom has reached me." That was her scream. The peace was broken. It's open season right now. Even during the days of one of the wickedest kings in the history of Israel, that would be Ahab, right? Israel, the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, were at peace with one another despite the nation completely falling to idolatry, except for Elijah and 7,000 knees that did not bend to Baal, as we know. But when that peace and camaraderie between people and between nations declare war on God, this is something that cannot be tolerated. And if you look at various agendas in the world today, and I'm not even speaking of some might call conspiracy theories. Not at all. I am simply saying that if you remove yourself, and this again, this is where sabbatical, or just turn off everything just for a moment and observe. You'd be so surprised at what you can see. So if you remove yourself from the situation entirely, and either read a book or watch a movie about what has gone down in the world in the past, let's say 3 years alone, you would clearly be able to see it, right? Not to mention that if you took all the events over the last 150 years, you would already have seen a clear pattern. I also know that removing oneself from the situation is easier said than done, as the overwhelming majority have no idea that there is even a situation to be held. What are you talking about? You're crazy. I know. Do you think that while Israel were enslaved in Egypt, they had any clue that they were in bondage? We've asked this question before. Any clue? They didn't have any clue. They continuously wanted to run back to those chains, if you will, because it was good for them, because it was all they knew. Slaves don't know what it's like to be free, and they were born slaves. Life was hard, sure, but if you or your children didn't die at the end of the day, it was a good day, and they made do. We're Jews, we're resilient. If you're born into something, that's all you know, and then that's all there is, and that is your complete reality. Even the idea that you are free thinkers today, everyone, is absurd. You are told what's good and what's bad, what to like, what to fear, what's true, what's false, depending on your religion, the color of your skin, your politics, your geographical location, your eating habits, the way you dress. I mean, the list never, ever ends. What is this doing? We as species have never been more divided than we are in this day and age. And where there is no peace, God does not abide, right? This is what made us different from all the peoples of the earth. When God chose Israel to be his people, his nation, that may have united other nations within themselves to come against us, but they themselves were still at war with other nations. You see, even the other side is calling, the other side, the Sitra Achra, the powers, those powers that be, they're calling for a one world order. This isn't conspiracy anymore. This is openly discussed public knowledge. They say this out in the open. This is what they want. So what do? Right? Division, 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 divide and conquer. You're different because of the color of your skin, because of where you're from, because of what you believe, because of what you say, because of how you identify. Everybody is different, but look, one uniting faction, and it has nothing to do with God. So, behold our reality right now. When one entity is completely united, they can achieve almost anything. See the Tower of Babel. Then ask yourself, if they were to get their way, what is it exactly that they would like to achieve? When you listen to the rhetoric and look at the big picture from the perspective of faith, of truth and of faith, it becomes clear who the leaders and influencers of this generation are. Now, this is the same generation right now as the Tower of Babel. And this is something that our sages have discussed for thousands of years. All the worst people, the worst generations get reincarnated into the last days because it's a do-over right now. God is collecting everyone together, and everyone, we're going to have a party over here. When the world is united without Israel, they always want to get God out of the way. In every instance, all the time. I don't recognize this God. Who is this God? Or let's go kill God. Not the brightest, but still. The last time our eyes, as a complete and whole nation, have been focused on the master of the universe was about 3,333 years ago, during 3,000 years ago, during the First Temple period, and very specifically during the reigns of the house of David and Solomon, right before and then during. Granted, our eyes were focused as a nation during the Exodus. That was the 33. But that's when we were being molded for specifically the time of the temple. And we will absolutely, make no mistake, delve deep into these concepts because that's what's going to get us through this garbage to where we all need to be. During that time when Israel was united as the United Kingdom of Israel, there was no enemy that could stand against us, because although we did pick up the sword, it was God who was defeating our common enemies, not common, but common enemies in the heavenly realms. And when the governing angel of any kingdom or empire is destroyed in heaven, they cease to exist here on earth. They simply fall like puppets. Case in point, Exodus 14:30. Vayosha Adonai bayom et Yisrael miad Mitzrayim, vayra Yisrael et Mitzrayim met al sfat hayam. On that day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians. We've gone through this, we'll go through it again. And Israel saw the Egyptians dying on the seashore. Now that is not what the Hebrew says, but for instance, this is what it says even in your average Orthodox English translation. It is simply wrong. You see, even like this throws people off. It ain't right. Something's got to change, and we're going to change it. The Hebrew says that on that day the Lord saved Israel from the hand of Egypt, as in the governing angel of the Egyptians called Egypt. And Israel saw Egypt, dead on the seashore. Has the nation of Egypt ever risen, the great Egyptian empire, has it ever risen again to its former glory? Not even close. Sometimes, though, they are but incapacitated for a time until they need to rise again in their allotted time. Case in point, Daniel 10. And he, the archangel Gabriel, said to me, "Fear not, Daniel, for since the first day that you set your heart to contemplate, to fast before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words." Remember this verse. "And the prince of the kingdom of Persia has been standing against me for 21 days. And behold, Michael, the archangel, one of the first princes, has come to help, and I remain there beside the kings of Persia." So there's a battle also going on in heaven. incapacitated for a time until the end of days. This is the kingdom of Persia. What is going to happen at the end of days with the kingdom of Persia? Ezekiel 38, and I shall unbridle you, and I shall put hooks into your jaws, and bring you forth, and all your army, your horses and your riders, all of them clothed in finery, great assembly, with encompassing shield and buckler, all of them grasping swords. He's bringing all these nations to Israel for the fight of Gog and Magog, right? Persia, Cush, and Put with them, all of with buckler and helmet. Now, he didn't say the Persians, the Cushites, and so on. Persia, you come, and all your little puppets are coming with you. See how that works? And there are many more examples of this if you pay attention to the Hebrew, of course. Now, let's be clear. There is a timeline, and there are times. Absolutely. The thing is interpreting the signs to the correct times. I've watched so many channels over the past few years that they build their whole channel based on the times and but the thing is, they're reading the Torah, Bible, they don't even speak Hebrew, so they're reading from the English, also they're reading the other book that has nothing to do with anything, and they're throwing it in there, and they've never been right. But they're predicting. That's called false prophecy. We've already read what happens to them, but again, what are you going to do? Time of judgment, it'll be what it is. So we're not talking about, I'm not going to be predicting anything here. I'm simply showing you now from all the history and all the text that we have. We're going to lay it out in front of you. You're going to be able to see. No predictions, just, oh, so that, yes, that. But we'll get to that. Anyway, so it's about interpreting the signs to the correct times. Okay. And what is the purpose of all of this? It's the same concept as catching a wave. If you've ever been surfing, okay, or just to the beach, right? The wave comes over. If you see what's coming and you feel what's coming and you know how to paddle, when to paddle, and also when to let go. It's not my way. It's not happening right now. Let it go. You can't. Oh, I'm too invested. There's no such thing. You're just not going to catch that wave. It's not your wave. I thought it'd be bigger. I thought it'd be small. No, let it go. Okay? Next one's coming. Same concept. So you have to know when to let go. It's very important. And it hurts me to say this, but for the last at least 2,500 years, in most cases, Israel, as a whole, okay, have missed the waves and completely ignored the signs. I'm not speaking, again, I'm going to bring you all the sages that were right on point. But Israel, generally speaking, and the leadership thereof, gone, missed it. Okay? All my favorite rabbis are the guys that got their butts kicked right out of the General Assembly for standing up to the General Assembly. And they were all right? Like Mordechai told you, he stood up against the Sanhedrin. One man stands alone. Anyway, but as we know, everything serves a purpose, and the purpose of all those seemingly missed opportunities, I say, because everything is according to God's plan, is for our benefit, but ultimately for God's name's sake. I've spoken of this time and time again, how vital it is to know who you are and where you currently stand so that you can properly fulfill your purpose in this life. Many of you out there, you believe, I got to do this and I got to do it. No, you don't. You really, really don't. We're going to clear everything up, not in this class. This is just, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say. But anyway, we'll get to that as well. So again, it's about properly fulfilling your purpose in this life, also known as your tikkun, your correction, ultimately partaking in the rectification of the world. Now remember, the world was created perfectly imperfect, to give all us perfectly imperfect beings an opportunity to perfect ourselves. What you will learn here, with God's help, is exactly what to do. See, this is why we got props. Okay, so this is a candle, but when God created all things, this is what it's kind of bumpy on the bottom, but I wrote perfect, and I put a little smiley face. on the bottom there. I don't know if you could see it. It's kind of messy. But let's say this is how God showed the world, because the world was, again, time is our space, but the world just was. God had to do a tzimtzum for everything to be. So this is what it was, and all the angels saw it, and God said, yeah, this is it. And the angels like, yes, this is it. This is perfect. All of this right here is perfect. God's like, awesome, great. Now, this is how it's going to play out. And they're like, oh, man. Now, I don't know if you could see this, but, right, and we've learned this as well. Our 6,000 years are divided into 3 sections, 2,000 years apiece. 2,000 years of tohu, of chaos. This ended as Abraham walked towards the land of Israel. Didn't even get there, just started walking towards the land of Israel. Abraham was born in 1948 to creation. When Abraham was 52, exactly at the year 2000 to creation, when he was 52 years old, he started moving out of Nimrod's kingdom in Babylon towards Israel. He did not even make it there, but he just started moving in the right direction. That's when he ushered in the age of Torah. Age of Torah. What happened in the age of Torah? We got the Torah, right? And what happened in the last 2,000 years from the destruction of the last temple? This is the time of Messiah. Now, what does this mean, the time of Messiah? This means that from this point on, Messiah has to come. So if you're saying, well, if they didn't do this, if this didn't happen, all of this had to happen. Why? Because all this is this. You understand? If this is perfect, what encompasses the perfect is all of this. And what has been going on right now is this candle has been lit since the beginning of time. Light candle, there you go. Since the beginning of time, and now the candle is down to all the way at the bottom. You know where it sits and there's no more wax. It's just kind of like wet, like any second now it's almost done. That's where we're at in the timeline. I'm going to put this here, but on like a coaster thing because I'm a responsible adult right now, so we could see the timeline drop. It's not going to finish now, but anyway, it's to prove a point and something for you to look at. I will continue. So, God's help, we'll know exactly what to do and how to navigate these times. Now, the reason I would even have to stress this is because of the wide audience that these teachings reach. And I'm very happy about that, mind you. Okay, what's the point of teaching just one group? They're like, oh yeah. No, I am here for a reason. You need to open your minds, people. But if I was only speaking to Jews, I would never have to say, hey, if you're not a Kohen, don't do Kohen things. Okay? Because of the falsehoods that I've experienced firsthand when I was taken to where I needed to be for a time, I absolutely have to stress this point. So I say to my Gentile brothers and sisters, hey, if you're not a Jew, don't do Jew things. Just like Israel are not Levites. I'm an Israel, okay? Israel, Levi, Kohen. Kohen is the highest. The Levites support the Kohanim. Israel supports the Levites. This is how it works. All right? Israel are not Levites. We support them. And why do we support the Levites? Who had no land or property, but live strictly off the nation of Israel, so they won't have to worry about anything else but to fulfill their job. And that is to fully support the Kohanim, the priests, in Avodat Beit HaMikdash, because this benefits everybody. You see? No Levi complains that they are not a Kohen, and no Israel complains that they are neither Levi nor Kohen. And so what you're supposed to do, if you have been woken up, left idolatry, and not a Jew, is support Israel. It's very simple. You support Israel, Israel supports the Levim support the Kohanim give to God, God gives back to everyone. You see how that works? This is how it works. It's like that arc reactor from Iron Man. It keeps feeding off of itself, but this is how God created the things. So, lest we forget, and I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse, and all the families of the earth shall be blessed through you. Therefore, we will also learn that everyone is exactly where they need to be and in the precise state that they are in. I've even gotten several emails over the last, during the sabbatical. I read them all. I didn't get back to everybody. By the way, I just want to thank everybody for really all your well wishes and your support and your mazel tovs and everything. We just celebrated our first year anniversary also on Shavuot, right? Erev Shavuot. So thank you all for that. And we are fine. Everything is good over here. We're holding down the fort. But I've gotten emails from people saying, "Oh, for the last year, yes, I got to become a Jew. And then they're like, "No, I'm good with a Noahide." You understand? And there you go, because that's your thing. But I could never tell you, "No, don't become a Jew. Be this, be that." It's not my place. You have to see it for yourself. And once you see it and you are at peace with it, then you know you are exactly where you need to be. See, the thing is, what no one teaches out there for some strange reason is that God created everyone and everything. They forget to teach this. And guess what? He loves all of his creations. All. Good, bad, and ugly. Spiritual and physical. And he grieves even when the wicked perish, and that's why he is called long-suffering. He has no desire for any of his creation to be destroyed. He lets the wicked be wicked in hopes that the wicked will do tshuva. You understand? He doesn't want to destroy any of his creation. It's his creation, all of it, everything. After he closed up the sea, and Egypt was dead, and all the Egyptians were at the bottom of the sea, the angels of heaven came to God, and they wanted to sing for him regarding this great victory. God said, "In sorrow, my creation is destroyed, and you want to sing?" No, this is not a happy day. It's a joyous occasion because my children are saved, but they were not, but they did. And judgment. This is how it works. So again, what we're about to get into here in the tent of Abraham can only work for you if you are 100% real with yourself. And like I said, the pursuit of truth is truth itself. You don't even have to come to a conclusion. You understand? You just have to keep seeking and searching. You will be okay. Otherwise, if you're not real with yourself, it's going to be a disaster. How many times have we discussed here that you and I can only do the best that we can do? I mean that. I really do. God is my witness. You can just do the best that you can do. And yet we constantly walk around with feelings of doubt that we can do better. Why are we so hard on ourselves? Where is all this fear coming from? Society is put in place standards that do not exist, and we tend to confuse between what is and what is actually supposed to be. I'm here to tell you, hi, your humble servant, okay, that your best, your honest best, the best that you have between you and between God and no one else, that best is good enough. And I'm also here to tell you that if you truly believe and acknowledge that, you're gonna be okay. Everyone merits the world to come if you leave idolatry and you live according to the 7 Noahide laws. You have the world to come. You don't need to take everything else upon you. You don't need to. Absolutely not. This is how God created the world originally, right? But then because the world got so messed up, it's like, okay, we need a hardcore rectification over here. Laws. You guys seem okay. Take this. With love, yes, but this is how it is. You see, you have to recognize that you are not perfect. You can never be perfect. You were created imperfect. Only God is perfect, and He will perfect you. You are also recognizing that you are exactly where you need to be, and you constantly search for how to be the best you that you can be wherever you are. You have to make a distinction also between judgment and between punishment. A lot of times I say judgment, you think punishment, but that's not that. Judgment is not punishment. Judgment is correction. See, it also depends where you stand in your mental state. Now, how do I know this? Do our parents, in an ideal world, of course, punish us in order to make us suffer? I'm not talking about those parents that should never have children to begin with. Okay? Our parents love us, right? We're doing something that's bad, harmful for ourselves or whatever. We just need to stop depending on the child. What? I want to punish you so you could suffer? I'm like, how's it feel now? No. Good parents don't do that. Who's the best dad in the world? right? But unfortunately, even most parents don't know how to get that right. My parents' go-to punishment was grounding. Okay, I was grounded at least half my high school days. I could be late home 5 minutes for curfew. I could burn down the house. You're grounded. It wouldn't matter, right? So I'm not ranking on my parents here because I know where they came from, and they did the best that they could with the tools that have been given to them. All right, it's not easy growing up as a child of a Holocaust survivor and then raising kids yourself. I was that kid. I was not an easy kid, and they just did the best that they could do. But look at the school system today, right? There are certain standards set, and every child, no matter their strengths, weaknesses, talents, or background, is required to go through the same education and grading system. Didn't we learn from Pirkei Avot, Chanoch hanar al pi darko? And also I think it said it in Mishlei, right, in Proverbs? How can you give two different neshamot the same standard? It doesn't work that way. But this is how our school system is. And if they don't fit that mainstream system, then what? They're considered a failure according to society. Do you think the prison rehabilitation system, works? No, it doesn't. Do we really trust our politicians? Do we know that everything we see in movies and TV is propaganda? I mean, if you look at Hollywood movies, I'm showing you the system. If you haven't seen this yet, I hope you have, in which case you can be like, right on, okay. Anyway, Hollywood movies. In the 40s, who were the bad guys? The Germans, duh, right? In the 50s, it was Korea. The 60s and 70s, it was, North Vietnam. And in the 80s, it was the Russians until the Soviet Union fell. So they've told you that it fell, right? In the 90s, it was like rogue factions and killer robots. They're developing, AI right now. No one watched Terminator. Really? Nobody? And in the 2000s, who was the bad guy? You guessed it. It was the Arabs. Who's the bad guy today? Straight white capitalist men, apparently. So it should tell you what you're being fed. Now, do you really think that you are living in a free society? Take Israel, for example. Over 3,000 rockets fired. I mean, as of now, I don't know when this thing is coming out. Over 3,000 rockets fired into populated areas with full intent to kill, maim, and destroy. That's it. Where the most people live, that's where we're going to fire the rockets. All right. People have been asking me, right, if we're okay. Yeah, we're okay. Like I said, it's just it's another Thursday here in Israel, and people here in Israel think that this is normal. It's upsetting people, but like, oh, rockets again, huh? Well, fine. And they're going to continue to trust the leadership that they have the citizens' best interest at heart. Oh, you voted for the other side. Oh, okay. And what do I say? We know it doesn't matter. Because even if the guy comes correct, the system is broken. No, he seems like a great candidate. Okay, but what system is he getting into? You cannot change that system because it's also a false system. And now already in Israel, we're already beginning to see the cracks. Israel has been blessed. It's a curse, but also a blessing. We are stiff-necked people, right? We don't like being told what to do. And everyone has their breaking point. And when it comes to wearing, face coverings and gloves and portable sneeze guards, people do that. And just generally walking around in complete fear and compliance, I could easily say, from what I've seen here, that American Ashkenazi Jews, they take the cake. Not all, but most of them. Again, I live in a very mixed community. We've got everything but the American Ashkenazis. Oh boy, love following them rules to a T, and I don't know, and we don't know, and okay, fine, no problem. See, they bring that fear from where? From the States. It's a propaganda country of the world, right? With the complete trust in your leaders who refuse to leave office. What's going on here right now? While Israeli Sfardis, they don't care that much, right? They'll just leave me alone, all right? But guess what? Everybody's fine. You see, no one was asking the question as to why this is happening or why this was happening. It's still happening. It's just we're busy with other things. Why this is happening while everyone was looking for a solution to go back to normal. I don't know about you, but this system by which we are living should not be just another Tuesday, okay, for humanity. Not with this happening and not with that happening. It shouldn't just be like, oh, okay, this again. This is not normal. There's nothing normal, not about this, not about that, not about anything that's going on over here. And so if we, as God-fearing people, should be asking the right questions, what do we ask? Why did this happen? Why is this happening? Why is no one asking these questions? I'm asking these questions. Now the answer is not even a mystery. It is for everyone in the world to see. It's in our Torah, and it's within the books of our sages. These occurrences have been written down thousands of years ago, and they can all be matched according to what is happening in the world today. And there's not a single significant spiritual leader here in Israel who is doing anything about it. Where are all those sitting in power that are doing anything or saying anything about it? Nobody, nothing, fear-mongering, compliance, all of them. No one is standing up. In fact, all you hear is, comply. Well, go ahead, comply, you sheep. Because the guy with rabbi in his name said so. Don't think for yourself, heavens forbid. If you haven't noticed, titles are meaningless, right? Okay, call me acting president of the United States. Why not, right? And so, it's up to us. Yeah, right? If you're listening to this, you are the resistance. And make no mistake, this is happening, one way or the other. I'll give you an example. You had the Rona, right? I say had because it's not time yet to release the new upgraded super mutation version into the world. You know, there's plenty of chaos going on in the meantime, so people totally forgot about what's going on over there. Okay, no problem. But soon, Rega, it's not over. I told you, the crown is just the beginning. So what did this Rona do? It caused communities to break apart. And it caused families to withdraw to their homes. Now again, I need you to get your head out of the media, out of the world, and come up to where I'm at. I say, trust me, okay? You'll enjoy the view. Just hear me out what I have to say. Everything had to be done, and everything that was released or planned or executed is 100% according to the will of God. God, remember him in all this? Remember the plan in all this? Remember the timeline? Oh, wow, beautiful. That we are there. This is us. It's all beautiful. You just have to look at it from the right angle. So God, master of the universe, creator of all things, the infinite. There are no oopsies with God. So again, now that we have that, this is where I'm at, the God consciousness, again, the Rona. Stay at home. Stay away from people. No human contact. No fraternizing. Or in other words, you're grounded. Now sit there, stay there, and think about what you've done to get there. Why do I want you here? Well, no one asked why, right? What do we do instead? What are we doing? What have we been doing? We're thinking about how to get out of there and get back to out there. Okay, well, clearly this Rona thing isn't working. Oh, you think it's just those secular people? Yeah? because they go to nightclubs and beaches and they like to have fun like that, no problem. Synagogues, closed. Yeshivas, closed. No big weddings, no joyous religious occasions. Done. Go ahead. Keep riding that high horse and looking down at everyone else. Everyone is grounded. Now you can't pray in a minyan, which you are commanded to do, nor can you learn Torah all day and with the chavruta. Now, everyone in Israel is on the same level. I don't care how much Torah you know, or think you know, or how religious you are, or how secular you are. Everyone is in the same boat. Everyone's grounded. Go to your room. Or in other words, I don't care who started it. Now go to your rooms and think long and hard about why you are here. No one's thinking. Think about how do we get out of this. 6 months into it, everyone is hating on each other, blaming each other, wishing the other dead. It's the Haredis, they did this. It's those guys, they went to the beach, they did this. Spreading this is spreading that. But then, what's this? I mean, this is what was going on here. But then, the magic cure. So magical. We are saved. And God had nothing to do with it. It's science, baby. Brilliant. The semi-religious love to jump on board with, well, clearly this magic cure that just so happens to be ready months in advance comes from God. To which I say, and the Rona didn't come from God? Then what's the point? If you get the Rona and, here's the magic cure, then what was the point of the whole thing? Because God does things for us to learn something. But this is just one side. God gave us the cure. Really? Keep calling it that. And even this magic cure can't cure the illness that people carry around every day in their beings. The fear, the hate, the pride, the victimhood. How do we know this? Cover your faces. Or in other words, keep your mouths shut. I've seen irreversible damage done because of this magic cure. More than the fear that this Rona could ever do. I have seen families divide, communities at war, lifelong friendships shattered. When Jews start openly calling one another murderers for the lack of their compliance, no matter the relation between them, how are we supposed to come back from that? Yeah, the time I called you a murderer because, what? You said it. You believed it. Clearly we missed the point of this whole thing that God brought upon us. We missed it. Okay, no problem. Hey Israel, what happens? What happens? You missed it. You missed that. No problem. But wait. So you think these rocket attacks right now, you think this is a curse? You think these rockets right now are a punishment, Israel? They're the biggest mercy that God could have given you at this point. God saved you by sending these rockets. You see? That's right. We have sunk so low that we need thousands of rockets into our homes as a mercy to the alternative. You were supposed to stay at home and reflect. You weren't supposed to stop praying. You were supposed to pray alone. Just you and me at your own pace. I had so many things to tell you. You didn't want to listen. What, there's nothing you wanted to ask me? Aside from please, now everyone's religious, please give me back my life so I can go out and do all the meaningless things that I've done before. With a life like that, you're better off with rockets. My beloved children. You see, I needed you all alone because the message I need to give you can only be given in where? The wilderness. And if you, Jew, will not go into the wilderness away from people, from noise, from partying, from the news, from the media, from the world, then I have the power to bring the wilderness to you. And so, you're grounded. And what did you do with your time? Have you been rehabilitated? Are you ready to get out of the world? God loves peace, remember? Especially between brothers. That's why we get rockets, because otherwise we'd be hating and killing each other. Right now our focus is at least them. You see how God is merciful? Baruch Hashem. At that window of reflection and personal one-on-one time that God gave us, it's closing rapidly. No problem. You're divided in the street. You're divided at home. Magic cure. You thought it was all going to be as it was. Do you have any idea where we are in this timeline? Do you? The window is closing still. And so, I want to let you guys know, okay? Yes, obviously I'm frustrated, but I also have a, affinity towards the theatrics. Gets my message across. I'm angry, not at people, I'm angry at the system because I see that this is what it is doing to people, okay? But don't worry, it's all going to be okay, all right? Okay, stay with me over here. So, God says, if I cannot get peace, which is really what God wants, especially from Israel, if I cannot get peace and unity through personal revelation by separating everyone, then I will give you unity without peace through collective turmoil. And behold, before we kill each other, let's divert our attention to our religion of peace-loving neighbors to the south and sometimes to the north. Now, the Rona isn't our biggest issue. Now, there is no left wing and right wing. Now, there is no orthodox or secular. Now, there is only us versus them. See that? This is another chance that we are getting. How much do you want to bet we're going to blow this one too? Again, because the system is broken. So I'll tell you something. The them is not even those who are firing the rockets. God uses donkeys and asses all day, all throughout the Tanakh also. These rockets just united Israel within a week. There's... we'll learn about this, but when it says, when Pharaoh drew near to Israel on the sea, it said that Pharaoh drew Israel near because he put the fear of, God into them, and because of that, they screamed to God, and that's what saved them, that last shout over there. Same thing, it says that the ring that Achashverosh gave Haman did what 24 prophets could not do. Was it 24 prophets? What all the prophets could not do, which is repent, Israel, but you put one ring of the king on the enemy of Israel and give him all that power to destroy Israel, all of Israel does tshuva. So if it's not going to work like that, guess how it has to work? We are seeing what was is what will be. So these rockets, they just united us within a week. Thank you very much, God. Baruch Hashem. And the them, who are the them? These are the powers that be that are trying to cause conflict within. The them are the ones inciting division, violence, and lynches from our side. See, we don't do this. This is wild donkeys of men stuff. Because, they're losing their minds right now. We're going off and we're acting like them. Oh, you think I'm being harsh like them and saying, no problem. Genesis 16:12, please. Adam, and he will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be upon all, and everyone's hand upon him. And before all his brothers he will dwell. That's it. I got nothing to add, Your Honor. There's just so much that you can blame a rabid dog for biting someone, okay? Especially when one foolishly extends a hand, calling it a fluffy bunny instead of what it is. Oh, they're the religion of peace. Sure they are. Why don't you listen to them? They're frothing at the mouth. The blame lies with the ones who should have put them down but did not. See, all these things could have ended. We could have had Harabait back in 67. Why do you want to give it to the Jordanian leadership when they're not here in Israel anymore? I don't know, but that's what they did. They'll pay for that. Make no mistake about it. However, it's still part of God's perfect plan. Everyone's responsible for their own actions, but it's still part of God's perfect plan. Now make no mistake, they are doing damage. Not the wild animals, but the powers that be. We are losing our humanity now because the system has no answers, and here we go again. The government won't protect us. This won't protect us. That won't protect us. This one's lying to us. We don't trust our, doctors anymore. So what's happening? Oh, look, it's prophecy being fulfilled. Well, we have no one to trust except our Father in heaven. So our Father in heaven is systematically breaking down all the infrastructure, just like he did in Egypt, and he's doing it right now, piece by piece. If you haven't seen this yet, open your eyes, and you will learn something, because this is happening before your very eyes. You're currently living in prophecy. Israel is sick and tired of the merry-go-round, too. So we are behaving like those who wish us dead. While just about everyone else is losing their damn minds. But no one, and I mean no one, seems to be asking, why? Why? And what are we to do about this situation? Why is this happening? What are we to do? Because God's trying to get our attention. He doesn't have it yet. So again, you got to turn up the heat, right? I read to you a few months ago that it's going to be wave after wave, and before one ends, the other one is going to begin. This is written thousands of years ago, and here we go. You got Rona, you got rockets. Hey, hold on, what's next? And if you're still not getting the picture, let me throw one more detail in there. Okay, here we go. So between the Ronas and the rockets, we have Lag BaOmer, right? The celebratory memorial day of the death of, but also primarily for the life of, arguably the greatest luminary, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He brought us Sefer HaZohar, the book of Zohar, the book of brightness, of light. Zohar is bright. That's what that means. That's what it means. It means brightness, like a bright light. Sefer HaZohar. This is almost 2,000 years ago. Daniel 12. And the wise will shine like the brightness of the sky. V'hamaskilim, sechel, brain, the wise, yizaharu kezohar harakia. Umatzdikei harabim kakochavim laolam. And those who bring the multitudes to righteousness, like the stars, forever and ever. Oh yes, they are one and the same. This is who Daniel was talking about. This book was written almost 2,000 years ago, and it was lost for 1,500 years, as it was written in the book. It resurfaced again around 500 years ago because the clock was winding down, and time was running out. It was time for the scattered Jews to get off their butts and return to the land, all of which will be discussed. As well, this time, our time, is what we're going to be learning moving forward. But I'll get back to all of this. See, during this celebration at Lag BaOmer, due to the overcrowdedness, because the place is supposed to hold about 30,000 people, you get like 500,000 people there, okay? You can't walk, your feet don't touch the ground. You move with the crowd. It's a wave of people. You can YouTube Lag BaOmer in Meron, okay? Meron. You'll see her by the Rashbi's grave. It's insane, right? What happened this last time? 45 people lost their lives. They were crushed to death by one another. They were going up steps. Steps were filled with, people spilled water. They slipped, and the crowds just kept on moving. You cannot stop this. They were trampled to death. The bodies kept on piling. No one could move a muscle, and they could only lay there and die. There are heartbreaking accounts of people who laid down right next to other people who didn't make it. They couldn't make it. They're just. I'll tell you an account. This guy in a wheelchair, he ended up in a wheelchair because of that. He was next to a 13-year-old boy. They couldn't move. People stepping everywhere, and the kid was crying. And then what does he say? He says, Mizmor LeTodah, psalms of gratitude to God. Because the guy's currently being crushed to death, this 13-year-old boy, and he's thanking God for everything that he gave him. To give a little bit more time, to not give up hope. Because it says, even if there's a sharp knife on your neck, you never give up hope that God could save you. Okay? Then the kid says, it looks like we're not going to be saved. It looks like we're going to die here. Time to say Shema. And he says Shema Yisrael. And as soon as he says Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, his neshama was taken from him. The guy's crying as he's telling us. He's right next to the guy. There's nothing he could do. He can't move. He saw a boot on his face. Heartbreaking. And in a sense, everyone there was responsible, right? Because you don't know who crushed a person, 3,000 people away could have been pushing, and it's like a domino effect. Anyway, this is death by stoning. There are 4 deaths by judgment according to the Torah, also known as Arba Mitot Beit Din. I discussed it about a year and a half ago when a member of our synagogue's 3-year-old son died in a pool. That's chenek, choking, right? So the 4 deaths are skila, srifa, hereg, v'chenek. Skila is stoning, srifa, burning. Hereg is a stabbing, pierced by a sword, and chenek, choking, hanging. So the worst is the first, and that is the stoning. After many, many investigations into this matter, I'm talking about how they execute this judgment. They do a thorough investigation, and once all the witnesses come forth, the Sanhedrin, this is obviously not now, this is during the temple times, the Sanhedrin would still call around the town to see if someone would come and testify on the person's behalf. In fact, the accused was given permission to testify and even plead momentary sanity. Says, no, I wasn't in my right mind when I did it, and then they would let him go. A Sanhedrin that would send a man to his death once in every 70 years was called a menacing Sanhedrin, and this rarely happened. These specific punishments, or rather judgments, hear me now, that have been given to the sages, as we can see in the book of Deuteronomy. Everything is taken from Deuteronomy. Where to act and how to act, right? As it acts as a complete atonement for the person. In other words, when you did something that truly deserves this, the punishment that you would get if you are to go on with life or die without going through this would be immeasurable. And that's why people are like, yes, I did this. And so when they confess and then they accept their fate, they have no need of correction in hell, but are called Ben Olam Haba, son of the world to come. That's what happens. If they die like this, stoning, yes, I did this, it's terrible, okay. Here's your death, you accept your death, you repent, you confess, you repent, you're going to heaven. You don't need to get cleansed in hell right now, because your soul just got cleansed. Anyway, so if a person confessed, this is how it happens. A person confessed, they would go up as high as a 2-story building, and then they would sedate the person. They give them, I don't know, whatever, some sort of like sedation drugs, and then give them alcohol, because there's no reason to be cruel. They don't want anyone to feel such tremendous pain, okay? Then they proceed to push the person off the roof. They can't jump because then that will be suicide, right? And there's no coming back from suicide. So if for some reason they do not die, they have a massive stone up there with them, which they toss over, and then they crush the person. And if for some odd reason that person lives after that, all the witnesses would gather around with stones to finish the job. But the bottom line is, okay, so that's why if you've heard of people stoning people for other things, it is not according to the Sanhedrin. It has nothing to do with Jewish law. But the bottom line is this: getting crushed is the hardest of all the punishments, and that is because it atones for the greatest of sins. And here are a list of the sins that one who gets stoned to death had to commit: an idolater, and one who incites others to worship idols; a virgin girl betrothed to a man who lay with another man; desecrating the Sabbath; one who curses the name of God, cursing his father or his mother; a man or woman having sex with an animal. Hey, apparently it's a thing, right? A man lying with the man. That's a thing too. One who sleeps with his mother. Yeah. One who sleeps with his father's wife. Like, not his mother's father, whatever, you get it. One who sleeps with his son's wife. A rebellious and wayward son. A sorcerer, a conjurer, or a fortune teller. These are the sins that one had to have committed with witnesses and openly confess and repent in order to get this specific punishment, and this was done when there was an active Sanhedrin during the days of the temples. Okay? All right. Now, we don't know the intimate lives of these 45 tzaddikim who were crushed to death, but I will tell you this. If you read up on all these individuals, you will know that something is not right here at all. As these 45 Jewish souls were genuine tzaddikim in their lives. Just read some of their stories. How could this have happened participating in a tremendous mitzvah, together with Am Yisrael in love and rejoicing, while singing and dancing for the sake of bringing down God's light to this ever so darkening world? Why did I call these people tzaddikim? Because they took this hit for Israel. That was righteous judgment. In a sense also that is mercy, because all judgment comes from mercy anyway. For the way that we've been living, and call it good. Exactly 10 days later was Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, and that's when the poo-poo hit the fan. All right? And we've been getting rockets ever since. 10 days, as in the 10 days of tshuva, the 10 days of repentance, the 10 days of awe. People do not know how to see what is right in front of them. God-fearing, Torah-studying people. We still didn't see the signs. Still, there was a blame. You did this, he did this, they did it, he should resign, they should resign. Like, yo, you are missing the point right now. Sure, investigate, but come on, man. You know, back in the day when we used to go to war, the leaders would consult with the rabbinical council, right? When is good, when is not? And we won because we were in alignment. What happened? But I gotta be honest with you. At this point, though, I don't think anyone really thinks about these things. I'm sure there are a few, but there are very, very few. And most of these few, even if they do see this stuff and ask the right questions, they wouldn't even begin to know where to look for answers. No one teaches this stuff. So I will. And I say this with fear and trembling, okay? Because I don't want to teach this. I'm afraid to teach this. This is a huge responsibility, but who the hell else is doing it? It's great to give people warnings and yell at them and tell them to do tshuva or else, do tshuva. These are meaningless words without the proper consciousness and understanding. If you're a Gentile listening to this right now, don't feel bad. Most supposedly Torah-educated Jews have even less of a clue what's happening in the world right now than you. Don't feel bad at all. You're at least recognizing that something is wrong. Those 45 deaths have been written already from the beginning, and they allude to the end. Adam, 45, Gematria, numerical value. This next part was brought to my attention by Rabbi Yaakov Mar, okay? He put this up on this video, it's in Hebrew. The book, there's a book called Benayahu of the Ben Ish Chai, is Rabbi Yosef Chaim from Baghdad, 1835 to 1908. This man was a giant. Now he wrote the following. Our sages said that in the merit of 45, again, this is in the 1800s. Our sages said that in the merit of 45 tzaddikim, the Geulah, the redemption, will come. Each one of them is called a creation. In Hebrew it is a bria, right? Like bri'at ha'olam, bria. Also read as bar ya, because there are 4 letters, bet, resh, yud, hey. Bar, son, ya, God, son of God. And this also is represented by the letter tet, the 9th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which represents the word tov, which is what God said of all his creation, as in, and God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Vayera Elohim et kol asher asa ve'hineh tov me'od. Now take the numerical value of the first 9 letters of the letter tet and add them up. What do you get? 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 equals, do it with the calculator. Okay, yeah, that's 45, which is also why Tiberia is called by the name Tet Bria. Same thing, Bet Resh Yud Hey. Good is creation, the Son of God. In this case, all 45 of them are called Bria, Son of God. The angels are referred to also as sons of God. And so if a person is referred to that in the same way, especially Israel, who are called God's firstborn son, then they know that they have no sins. We know that they have no sins, which means they died complete tzaddikim because of how they died. Which is why it is also said that in the same text written thousands of years ago and compiled and deciphered by the Ben Ish Chai almost 200 years ago, that these 45 tzaddikim will bring the redemption from the region of Tiberia, which is the entire north of the country. Meron is right next to Tiberia. It's within the Tiberia region. You see when this was written? It's called the land of Tiberia. And since it's also considered the capital of the north. And what, pray tell, is the numerical value of the word Geula, or redemption? If you said 45, then give yourself a gold star. The redemption has begun. We are currently in it. And we are getting whacked left and right because we're not waking up. Come on, Israel. You've been in a comatose state for way too long. It's time to wake up. Excuse me, my throat is very, very dry. So we got to wake up. This is what has to happen right now, and this is what we're doing. Okay, it's time to rise from those ashes. The rounds are going to be getting louder and louder until something snaps. We discussed fractions of these timelines in months past. All these little pieces that are now coming together. The 7 stages, which could be likened to a pregnancy. The debate is of is it a full term, 9 months, or 7 months? Your standard term is 9 months, which is what is written on Masechet Sanhedrin about Romi. Okay, who's Romi? Rome, Edom, ruling over Israel for 9 months, and then Mashiach comes. But the other is a 7-month term, as Isaac was in his mother's womb for 7 months, as were all the 12 tribes. All the sons of Jacob, Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, were literally all 7-month term babies. Anyway, it discusses what is going to happen in each month, which is also a year cycle. Stay with me here. On the week, and we discussed this in previous videos, on the week that the son of David comes, it says, Mashiach ben David, the first year there will be hunger in one place and prosperity in another. The second year, spears of hunger are thrown all over the place and there is no satiation. Replace hunger with finances and you might be getting a clearer picture. The third year, great famine, tzaddikim will die, okay, and then women and children will die too. Okay. And mitzvot are not going to be kept, and Torah is not going to be learned. Who closed down the yeshivas now? Torah is not going to be learned, and it is forgotten from those who used to learn it. Know what's written, identify the timelines. Don't say this is happening, wait and see. But you know the urgency is there. What's in the 4th year? There is plenty, and yet no one is sated. I'm not even getting into the 5th or the 6th or the 7th now. But bli neder, we will get into it, okay? Absolutely get into it and break it down and see where we hold. Okay, so the 5th year, that's where it gets interesting, but that will also be discussed in context in the future, near future. We will be discussing the words of the Torah, the prophets, the Ketuvim, the words of the sages, as well as extra-biblical texts. Along the way, along this specific path, with the overlying goal of rectifying the Shechina that has been exiled with Israel and has never fully returned and been restored since Babylon, We will enrich our understanding and beautify the perfect plan of God for this world. That we will know where each of us stand. We're all in this together, but we're in different places, and we all need to be in exactly where we need to be. And God willing, we will have an actual understanding with practical, day-to-day, moment-to-moment guidelines of how to be. Remember, the focus is never about what you do, but rather how you do it, and you will grow from there. You can never control the outcome. It has nothing to do with you. But the only thing you can somewhat control is the effort that you put into it. And that is what God sees. And he, Gabriel, said to me, "Fear not, Daniel, for since the first day that you set your heart to contemplate and to fast before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words." Amazing. We are all now going to set our hearts to contemplate, to understand what God is speaking to us. When I was growing up and reading Torah, I was wondering who is this God? Where is this God? Because the God of the Torah was non-existent in the homes, the minds, the schools, and the hearts of his children. I did not see this God anywhere. And we're still in exile in every sense of the word, and yes, even geographically. If there is no temple, there's no Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not built. If there's no Jerusalem, there is no Israel. Not my words. This is according to the Torah, according to the prophets, according to the sages. We're going to learn that too. And yeah, we're going to get angry, but a righteous anger. We are still in exile, and we are still in complete denial about it. That's why nothing is being done. That's why there's no urgency. But God is creating the urgency, if you haven't noticed. We're satisfied, relaxed with how things are going. Congrats, Israel. You now have a country just like the rest of the nations. You joined the UN and everything is good. How's that working for you? I am not satisfied. Not with this. Not with any of it. And neither should you be. 2 Samuel 7. And it came to pass when the king, David, dwelt in his house, and the Lord had given him rest round about from all his enemies, that the king said unto Nathan the prophet, "See now, I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwells within the curtains? It's in a tent?" And Nathan said to the king, "All that is in your heart, go and do, for the Lord is with you." Wouldn't you love to hear that? See, his heart was good. It was in the right place. That's why the Lord is with him. I say is because David Melech Israel chai v'kayam, baby. Now I'm going to tell you a secret. The Lord is with us too. Just the same as he is with David. Now you know what the difference is? We don't believe it because we don't even think that this is possible. And we could regurgitate and affirm that statement all we want, but it's not going to make it more true in our own reality. That's why you got to get out of your own reality. Because it's not about creating your own reality, it's about accepting God's reality, which is greater than anything we could ever come up with. Why is this military, you know what this military operation is called? Shomer HaChomot. Comes from Shomrei HaChomot, guardians or watchmen of the walls. Do we know where this comes from? All of you, oh yeah, Ezekiel. No, it's not Ezekiel 33. Ezekiel 33, I'm going to go through this with you. Here's what it says. You need this one, you need the Hebrew, okay? Ben Adam daber bnei amcha ve'amarta elhem eretz ki avi alea charev ve'lakchua ma'aretz ish echad miktehem ve'natnu oto lehem letzofeh. Son of man, speak to the members of your people and say to them, when I bring armed attackers upon a land and the people of the land take one man from among themselves and appoint him for as a lookout. Look out. Hello. Somebody's coming. Trouble is afoot. And he sees the army coming upon the land and he sounds the shofar and warns the people. Okay, so this one is called lookout. Tzofeh. And this lookout is supposed to warn the people when trouble is coming. But What if trouble is already here? Okay, so it's not that one. What about Isaiah 62? For the sake of Zion I will not be silent, and for the sake of Jerusalem I will not rest, until her righteousness comes out like brilliance, and her salvation burns like a torch. And nations shall see your righteousness, and all the kings your glory, and you shall be called by a new name, which the mouth of the Lord shall pronounce. And you shall be a crown of glory in the hand of the Lord, and a kingly diadem in the hand of your God. No longer shall forsaken be said of you, and desolate shall no longer be said of your land, for you shall be called, my desire is in her. Oh, Chefziba. I knew someone named Chefziba when I was Chefzi. It's funny. Anyway, and your land inhabited, for the Lord desires you, and your land shall be inhabited. Okay. As a young man lives with a virgin, so shall your children live in you, and the rejoicing of a bridegroom over a bride shall your God rejoice over you. Oh, your walls! On your walls, O Jerusalem, I have appointed watchmen. All day and all night they shall never be silent. Those who remain, the Lord be not silent. This is a song. No? Anybody? Sing. Okay. על חומותייך ירושלים הפקדתי שומרים, כל היום וכל הלילה תמיד לא יחשו המזכירים את השם אל דמי לכם. הפקדתי שומרים. שומרי החומות? Not exactly. Now what I just read, we are currently in this process. It's in the process of happening. It didn't happen yet, right? The land has been, coming back to not desolate anymore. But again, everything has to do with the temple, Jerusalem, the land of Israel, in that order. So we're coming from the outside and we're getting there, but we've been stagnant for too long. Time, she's burning up. So it doesn't exactly say Shomrei HaChomot, right? The watchman on the wall. So there's only one place that actually has these words in this order, and that is in Shir HaShirim. Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, Song of Songs, chapter 5, verse 7. The watchmen who patrol the city found me, they smote me, they wounded me, the watchmen of the walls took my jewelry off of me, okay? Or they took my jewelry off of me, the watchmen of the wall. מצאוני השומרים הסובבים בעיר, היכוני פצעוני, נשאו את רדידי מעלי, שומרי החומות. Here we go. This is the verse. This is what this current operation during this time is called. Now, it doesn't sound like a very positive thing now, does it? And that's because it's not. And some genius decided to call it this operation. That lo and behold, our technological might, our super high-tech Iron Dome is not perfect. Oh no. Okay. Or what was that we said in teaching Parashat Beshalach? You could look that up. About Amalek attacking Israel right after they crossed the sea. If you can make God bleed, then people will cease to believe in him. Right? So, wait a minute. So shoot a lot of rockets in every direction. You're bound to hit something. And they are. There we go. By the way, regardless of whoever gave this specific operation, this specific name during this specific time period, genius and biblically learned as they may be, I of course say this with much tongue and much cheek, God is the one that made this happen because, like all the other times, He is speaking to us until we listen. Who is listening? So let's try and understand what the Master of the Universe is saying to His beloved before it is too late. And we will do this one according to the Vilna Gaon, the Gra. Now let's start now. We'll discuss the Gra, okay? He's actually, anyway, we'll talk about him future, but next class. Okay. So let's start with Song of Songs 5, verse 2. We'll go in a little bit of context over here. אני ישנה וליבי ער, כל דודי דופק, פתחי לי, אחותי, רעייתי, יונתי, תמתי, שרשי נמלטל, כבוצותיי רסיסי לילה. I sleep, but my heart is awake. My beloved is knocking, open for me. My sister, my beloved, my dove, my perfect one. For my head is full of dew, my locks with the drops of the night. I sleep. That is Israel in exile. That was in Babylon, as it is right now. We're in Babylon. But my heart is awake. Those are the ones of Israel who cannot sleep. This also back in the day refers to Daniel. My beloved is knocking through sign after sign, be it the flu, rockets, or reality TV. Wake up, something's not right. Open for me, as God said, Pitchu li petach kechoda shel machat, va'ani eftach lachem kepitcho shel ulam. Open for me your hearts, an opening the size of the end of a needle, and I will open up for you an opening of a hall. It sounds so much better in Hebrew. And behold, the heartbeat of God. Open for me, my sister, my beloved, my dove, my perfect one. That's God's heartbeat. My sister, these are the wise, as written in Proverbs 7:4. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and you shall call understanding and kinsman. Now, before we go on, my sister, my bride, gross, no, not really. Again, you have to understand where all this is coming from. For instance, it comes down to things of tzniut, right? To your sister, you can show affection in public. You're not supposed to touch women in public. To your sister, you can show affection, okay? To your mother, your sister, and your daughter, right? That's it. You can show affection to your sister in public, but in private, my beloved, right? A husband and wife are in private. In other words, when I say my sister, meaning I will show you affection in public as one would show his sister, because a husband and wife do not show affection in public. It is not modest. You see, this is how it is. You read this, all of a sudden you get this whole new understanding about how Solomon wrote these things. It's beautiful. Or how he was given these things. Anyway, say to wisdom, you are my sister. So my sister, these are the wise. My beloved, these are the ones with reverence who revere God. My dove, these are the ones who cleave to the Torah and do not leave her like a dove does not leave its partner. My perfect one, these are the ones who perform the mitzvot wholeheartedly. Try their best. For my head is full of dew, because I've been standing outside all night long, waiting for you. My locks with the drops of the night as in the galut. And now, this is God. Now Israel replies to God. I've taken off my tunic. How can I put it on? I've bathed my feet. How can I soil them? What? פשטתי את כותנתי איכחל בשינה, רחצתי את רגלי איכחת ענפם. When God called to Ezra, by the command of Cyrus to return to Israel and build the second temple, this is what Israel said. I've taken off my tunic. How can I put it on? I'm so comfortable here in Babylon, in Persia, America. I have my Jewish communities, my synagogue, my Mahjong group. I'm good here. I'm living a Jewish life here. Don't make me get dressed again and do this whole thing. I've bathed my feet. How can I soil them? Don't make me go through that rugged place that was destroyed and get my feet all dirty again. I'm really, really good and comfortable here. Thank you, though. I'll support you with prayers and the occasional donations to the IDF while I continue to sit here and vote blue. This has been going on for millennia. And now we are finally able to come back to this land. And where the hell is everybody? Really? Really? You know that during the time where Cyrus gave the okay to return, only around 2 to 4% of the Jews living it up in Persia and Babylon actually returned? And they had to fight and build? It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. Now, it was then, and it still is now. My beloved stretched forth his hand from the hole, and my insides stirred because of him. My beloved stretched forth his hand from the hole. If we don't open the doors to our heart, standing by the door, he's knocking. No. If we don't open the doors to our heart, God will enter still through the tiny holes and the cracks of our heart. We belong to Him. And my insides stirred because of Him. You don't belong where you are right now. And you can't use rockets as an excuse not to come, because that might have been now. But what have you been doing all this time? Your insides stir because we should have been here, all of us been here, a very long time ago, as any person who makes Aliyah. Why did they come here? Ask them. Ask any person. Because they felt pulled, compelled. They had to be here like air to breathe, like every fiber of their being was screaming for this place. In other words, as King Solomon so perfectly and poetically stated, and my insides stirred because of him. But what happens if you wait too long? I know people that have been trying to make Aliyah for years now, and because of the situation after situation, it's just not possible. I arose to open for my beloved, and my hands dripped with myrrh, and my fingers with flowing myrrh upon the handles of the lock. I arose. Congratulations. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Because I couldn't stand to be separated anymore. To open for my beloved. To open my heart to return to him. And Arena and I gave this class, I forgot how long ago it was. Anyway, one of our recent ones, about how the Jewish men that returned to Israel, what did they do? Sinned tremendously. They took foreign wives. They had to divorce their wives, otherwise the temple could not have been built. Furthermore, because they did take foreign wives in the first place, although they did divorce them, the purity was ruined, and the second temple was destroyed because the foundation itself was tainted. Not to mention that the Holy of Holies was empty of the Ark of the Covenant, so the whole thing was like one big charade, okay? Facade, charade. My hands dripped with myrrh, the foundation that began with Cyrus, and my fingers, my fingers flowing with myrrh. The temple was completed during Darius, upon the handles of the lock, the walls around the city of Nehemiah. So, what if you wait too long? What if you miss all the signs and all the signals over and over and over again? I opened for my beloved, but my beloved had hidden and was gone. My soul went out. When he spoke, I sought him, but I could not find him. I called to him, but he did not answer me. This is where you have my permission to be terrified. I opened for my beloved. Once the second temple was built, Israel made a covenant with God, and they all signed it. The leaders did. That's the reps. But my beloved had hidden and was gone. Although there was a covenant, there were 5 missing elements from the temple that existed in the first one, but not in the second one. The Ark of the Covenant, which we discussed. The Urim and the Tumim, these gave the Kohanim answer. They put it in their chest behind the breastplate. Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, the heavenly flame, and the Shechina. She never returned. The second temple was symbolic at best. Ultimately, it was upgraded by a Gentile who crowned himself king over Israel, Herod the Great. My soul went out when he spoke. Went out, that's Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. I sought him, the fire, but found him not. No fire. I called him, but he did not answer me. Through the Urim and the Tumim that gave the Kohanim answers. And here we go. The watchmen who patrol the city found me. They smote me and wounded me. They took all my jewelry off me, the watchmen of the walls. מצאוני השומרים הסובבים בעיר, היכוני פצעוני, נשאו את רדידי מעלי, שומרי החומות. So you have to read after this what comes next, and this is how Israel is going to be aroused. You know, we probably should learn about this, and we will learn about this because it's imperative. We need to. The watchmen. Now, again, there's the watchmen and the watchmen who patrol the city. Okay? מצאוני השומרים, השומרים הסובבים בעיר. It says it one time, but you know you could break things up, right? The watchmen, these are the angels that escort a man wherever he goes and to whatever he does throughout the day. if he lives according to the heartbeat of God, right, Yonati. As we mentioned just a few verses ago, they protect him. But if he does not, they harm him. We've discussed this plenty of times, that we create either angels of light through goodness or angels of darkness through the opposite. And the angels of darkness do not like their own existence. They suffer more than we do, and they will accuse you every day of your life and after because you created them. These are the watchmen. The watchmen who patrol the city found me, okay? These are the archangels. Here they are again, Michael and Gabriel. They smote me. What? When Nebuchadnezzar and his Babylonian horde were sacking Jerusalem during the time of the first temple period, the temple itself was a holy building, lifted itself up and was going to ascend. Right? It was holy after all. But Michael and Gabriel, they held it in its place, and Gabriel is the one who started the fire in the temple. Obviously, the Babylonians did it, but Gabriel was the one that made it happen. He's judgment after all, executing God's judgment, God's perfect and beautiful plan. So now if this comes as a shock to you, then it should not. Gabriel was also the one who planted the seed in the bottom of the Mediterranean, which eventually grew to become Rome. When Solomon married the daughter of the king of Egypt, he was 13. She was his first wife. Was he punished for that? No. He did nothing wrong. All this was supposed to happen exactly as it did. Now don't ever forget where we are and who is in control of every house burning down and of every rocket's destination. They smote me, the temple, and wounded me, the land of Israel, lost or sparked and was destroyed and laid in ruins, right? Why would I go back to that land? Why would I soil my feet again? They took my jewelry off me. The crowns of Israel had been removed, and the temple had lost its holiness, as discussed before, removed by Michael and Gabriel, the watchmen of the walls. Shomrei HaChomot. We got to hear this in the news every day. We are reminded of this, the watchmen of the walls. This is the name of our current operation. This is what God is screaming to Israeli people right now. And people are like, oh, no one's thinking about any of this. This tells us, what does this tell us? What does this tell us? That it's all up to us right now. Everything I just read to you, based on our past, present, and future, all came down to God constantly desiring us to return to Him. Return to me and I will return to you. Return to the land and build the house that He told David He would dwell in. The watchmen aren't watching us. They're watching the walls of Jerusalem. And the walls of Jerusalem are not built, nor are they currently being built. And the temple does not stand as we sleep comfortably in our beds, in our houses made of wood and stone, which, oh look, rockets can penetrate. And we don't want to wake up for God and jump out of bed, right? No problem. Then God will make sure that we wake up and jump out of bed and run into a bomb shelter. At some point in time, we can even go through all of Shir HaShirim, like we discussed, because most of the answers that we've actually been looking for in everything are there, especially regarding the shape of the things to come. They're all taken from this book. Now, we've learned this before as well. Shir HaShirim was the last book submitted into the Tanakh when our sages from the Second Temple period compiled it, right? There were all these books. The Tanakh was not as it is today. We had all these books, many, many texts, so many books, okay? And the rabbis, the Sanhedrin, at that time, they took a vote. And it was actually Rabbi Akiva, who was, incidentally, the teacher of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He's the one that he's the reason that this book made it into the Tanakh. He called it Kodesh HaKodeshim. All the other books are Kodesh, but this is Kodesh Kodeshim. This is the Holy of Holies. And we will see why in the future. This is the ultimate love letter between God and His beloved Israel on every single level. This book is considered to be the entire Torah, the culmination of the entire Torah. You want to read the whole Torah? Read Shir HaShirim and understand what it is and why you're doing it, which we'll learn about it. And this is what my wife and I have read every single day now for 50 days for the sake of the rectification of the Shechina. Malchut Shamayim, the kingdom of heaven, Malchut Beit David, the kingdom of the house of David, and Binyan Beit HaMikdash, the building of the temple. This is our mission, people, and we're going to do it. So, for the foreseeable future, we are going to be deciphering the times to come. And as Israel, we know that the way to understand the future is by understanding the past. I said before, right? Mashayahu zesheyeh. Oddly enough, and not too many people know this either. A lot of people in plenty different places, they like to say this. What was is what will be. Okay. Mashayahu sheyeh. Ma, mem, shaya, shin, hey, hu, hey. Moshe, sheyeh. That says Moses. Moses is returning. It's written right there, so don't argue with me. Anyway. Or, as God says, Hen garti etchem acharit kereshit liot lachem le'elohim. So I have redeemed you in the end, like in the beginning, to be your God, right? Moses was the first redeemer. It's got to be the last redeemer. What is his job with the two Mashiachim? We will discuss this as well. We will discuss everything. The end is what we are rapidly approaching, while the beginning was Egypt. That was the prototype. That was the first. You want to know what will be? We dive into what was. And this is going to be a whole lot of fun too. It's a compilation of the Vilna Gaon, of the Gra, and the Ramchal, by the same title, Acharit Kereshit. With this compilation, we're going to take from every corner of Scripture imaginable, from the simple text to the most sacred and hidden of texts, from lost texts that have been found and have been popping up, even recently, even in the last couple hundred years. I got some very interesting to show you. And God willing, by doing so, and adapting this consciousness, and everything that I've been speaking here, and everything that we've been learning, and the reason that we exist right now, that we're breathing and watching this video, of course, we will have a major part in the upcoming and final redemption. Before that candle goes out. Everything we do is for the rectification of the Shechina. Get that in your mind. That has been with us in exile for thousands of years. So, my friends, here is to Malchut Shamayim, Malchut Beit David, V'binyan Beit HaMikdash. It's no coincidence that I came back right now in Parashat Naso. Carry, lift up. It is time, Israel, it is time to lift ourselves from the ashes and raise our heads from our hands. And God willing, I'll see you all next week for the intro class. We're going on a ride, kids. So with that being said, thank you all so much for joining me. I really missed you guys. You have a wonderful rest of the week. You have a Shabbat Shalom. Be safe. Bye.